The latest Pompey news, updates every day from the Pompey Sound news desk.
Pompey are keeping their cards close to their chest regarding injuries, and a new rumour concerning a possible January signing is attracting interest.
A former Arsenal prospect is tearing it up on loan at Bolton Wanderers in League One, and Portsmouth aren't the only ones taking notice. Several Championship clubs are now circling the Brighton-owned winger, who Pompey have previously tracked. He's someone who's been on Portsmouth's radar before, and right now he's absolutely flying in that right-wing spot where the Blues just haven't been able to find anyone who can nail down the position this season. Mario Collier-Duberry is racking up goals and assists for fun at Bolton Wanderers, and people are starting to take serious notice of the Brighton loanee. John Messinio watched him in person last year while considering a loan move for the 20-year-old, and now Collier-Duberry is grabbing headlines left and right in League One. He's already got 7 goals and 7 assists this season. Not bad for the Londoner who spent last campaign on loan at Championship side Blackburn. His output really kicked into another gear last month, with 2 match winners and 2 assists, form that earned him the League One Player of the Month award. Then last weekend, the ex-Arsenal youngster took things to another level entirely, single-handedly destroying Port Vale. He had a hand in all 4 goals, scoring twice and setting up 2 more, as Bolton hammered them 4-0 to climb into the League One playoff spots. Manager Steven Schumacher couldn't say enough good things about him after that Player of the Month recognition. He told Bolton's official site, "Mario has been different class. To be fair, he's been good all season, and in the last month he's come up with some really big moments for us and been the one who's taken the headlines. He's been excellent since the day he came in during pre-season, and we've loved working with him. He deserves everything that he's got because he's a young player who is desperate to learn and desperate to get better. It looks like he's really enjoying his football at the moment, so we want that to continue for as long as possible." All this form hasn't gone unnoticed. A bunch of Championship clubs are reportedly keeping tabs on him now. Sheffield United, West Brom, Preston and Bristol City are all supposedly interested, and Brighton have the standard January recall option in his loan deal. Whether Pompey will try again for him is the big question. The kid who's helped Bolton win 4 league games in a row plays mainly on the right wing, exactly where Portsmouth have struggled to find any consistency this season. After Matt Ritchie left in the summer, new £500,000 signing Franco Ume and Harvey Blair were meant to be the main options there, but injuries have held both back. Meanwhile, Swansea loanee Florian Bianchini hasn't really got going since arriving, and his loan will probably be reassessed in January. Portsmouth have borrowed from Brighton before. Mark O'Mahony spent last season at Fratton Park, making 13 appearances and scoring 3 goals.
If you're a club that loans players out, it is probably valuable, but a small value, but valuable nevertheless, to have the player playing for a club that's up the road from you. Bolton isn't up the road from Brighton. Pompey effectively is up the road from Brighton. So if that is any kind of a factor that works in our favour as far as this lad goes, he's a persistent type because he was passed over by all the London clubs. He's born in Tottenham, and it's his dad probably who kept him at it, believing that his son was good enough to play football, and he would know because his dad, that's Mario Collier-Duberry, and that's how you pronounce it, by the way, Duberry, not Duberry, was Michael Duberry, who people who are old enough will remember easily from his time, particularly right centre spotlight for Chelsea and Leeds United, a towering centre-half and very effective, and a man who loved his football so much and his family so much that having been transferred to St Johnstone, he got himself transferred back to Oxford because he wanted to be closer to his family, and he carried on playing. His last game he turned out for Oxford against Accrington Stanley just short of his 38th birthday. He loves his football, and he is now mentoring in football, and he's got 2 sons who are professional footballers. And in doing our research into Mario Collier-Duberry, we discovered the curiosity, and that's all it is, a curiosity, that he has a brother whose name is Zane Silcott-Duberry, who plays professional football in Greece for Olympiakos B. And Zane, Michael Duberry's son, was born on July the 9th, 2005, and Mario Collier-Duberry was born on May the 29th, 2005. So these 2 brothers were born 5 weeks apart, and we draw no judgment, make no comment. We live in modern times, and as long as they're happy, it's their business. And I'm sure they are. A professional footballer for a dad and 2 professional footballers for sons. I guess it can get better, but not a lot than that.
John Messineo is talking about the frustrating shifts in a player's price tag from day one of Pompey's interest to the period when other clubs make inquiries about the same player.
Sometimes when you speak about players at the start of the window, there's a certain cost associated with them, which you are quoted by the agent or the club. The second you get a couple of clubs involved, or 2 or 3 clubs, that rises and rises exponentially. Sometimes you end up being blown out of the water. I don't think it's a waste of time to be involved in it, because we will find some players who we can compete in that market for. We were in really heavy competition for Segs with a number of clubs, but it was a slightly different scenario because it was compensation rather than a bidding war. There's 2 ways to do it. You can be resigned to never competing and never trying to find one of those players who costs what you thought they would at the start of the summer. Or you can keep pursuing those, and if we land on one, great. If we don't, then you have players you can sign as the next alternative. Always frustrating being outbid for a target. You look at players and there's clearly a difference between those level of players and others. So you look and think a player is clearly going to make a difference. You want to sign as many good players as possible, but you're not going to be able to sign every player you look at and every player you speak to. There's a load of factors which come into it. You have to keep your emotions out of it and detach yourself from emotions when making business decisions. If something's moved on, it's moved on. There's nothing you can do about it. You go to the next one. You can get really upset about not signing a player or not bringing a certain player in, but ultimately you have to move on and do what you think is right for the football club.
John Messineo isn't mentioning any specifics there, apart from the chase for Segacic, but we can guess, that's to say, those who aren't John Messineo and Rich Hughes and others who are connected with the recruitment programme and therefore the negotiations for new players, we can guesstimate, that's fans, journalists, what have you, we can guesstimate that what happens is when Pompey show an interest in a player, then that player's connections want to make sure that all money that changes hands when that player changes clubs, in other words, is transferred, is as high as possible, because that benefits almost everybody except the buying club. It benefits the player, who gets a piece of his transfer fee. It benefits the agent, obviously, and it benefits the club that is selling the player. So 4 parties, if you like, 3 of whom are all the happier to generate extra interest in that player, possibly by letting other clubs know, hey, guess what? Pompey are after our man, and he's good, because Pompey know what they're doing, and if they think he's good, he's good. So why don't you have a look at him as well and maybe make a couple of phone calls? Jack his price up another $500,000. Could be what's going on. We will never know. It could be one of the reasons why John Messineo is being open about the fact that he was unable to sign certain players that he hoped to because their price tag kept going up and up and up. And when you're buying something, you don't pay silly money. You pay money and maybe you pay a little bit more than you hope to pay. But you don't go crazy and break the bank just because you're being manipulated into that situation by the other club and by the players' connections. You've got to keep it sensible. It does not mean that we have a squad that's full of alternatives. We need to be very clear about that because, for example, Callum Lang, who we are looking forward to bursting back onto the scene, hopefully against Millwall, hasn't been 100% confirmed yet, but all the indicators suggest. When he bursts back onto the scene, we have to remember that we picked him up on the sly and did a really clever job then. And if we did it there, then why can't we do it somewhere else again and again? And that is the battle plan. The BBC are running a very interesting piece on their website about Joe Morrell, an excellent piece of writing by Chris Watham, and it's headlined "The Painful Slow Death of a Playing Career After World Cup Highs." Here's a taste of the opener.
As so often can be the case in football, it's the hope that hurts you. Joe Morrell still had hope. He still had aims of returning to play alongside Wales teammates he had shared dressing rooms with from youth level all the way to 2 major finals. Even relatively recently, the 28-year-old still had hope of being part of Craig Bellamy's side, that carry the ambition of returning to the World Cup stage Morel enjoyed just 3 years ago. And then it was all taken away, not suddenly, not immediately, not even remotely obvious when a nothing twist of the knee ultimately turned everything on its head. But slowly and ultimately painfully, so much so that after 21 long months of clinging to hope, last month's decision to retire brought more relief than resentment. People have come up to me, asking how I'm doing, as if they expect me to be absolutely devastated, the now former Wales and Portsmouth midfielder says. I can imagine if you'd been sat in a surgeon's office after a bad injury, and they tell you that's it, you can't play again, that would be tough. But I think I might have preferred it.
He played for us nearly 100 times, Joe Morel. 92 times, to be precise, 92 appearances between 2021 and 2024. Scored a single goal, but there he is, retired from football at the age of 28. And that piece in the BBC is well worth reading. I think it might be on Solent, but certainly if you go to BBC Sport and search Joe Morel, it's a really interesting piece. You know how we all have our own little flashbulb memories of players from times gone by, and I guess that's Joe Morel now, times gone by. And mine is this, and it's not him on the pitch. It's something that I read about him when he was on his way here from, it was Luton we got him from, didn't we? He'd been out on a series of loans. Bristol City was his home club. Well, he was an Ipswich boy, but it was Bristol City that he started his career with. And they loaned him first to Sutton. They also loaned him to Cheltenham and to Lincoln before Luton Town gave him a contract, although he only played 10 times for them. But the thing that I remember is this. His determination and dedication to becoming a professional footballer was immense. So much so that living and working in Bristol as a Bristol City employee, a player, he was told that he was going to be loaned to Margate and that it would be initially for a period of 4 weeks, a month-long loan. So he might like to think about getting a little rented place or maybe checking into a budget hotel so that Monday to Saturday he could train with Margate and then play in their various games. They were playing about the level of, because I know he played against, Whitehawk, which is entirely respectable but not exactly top tier club based in the Brighton area. So that's the level of football that he was playing in, but he still had hopes of climbing to some kind of very top. So what he did was he kept his digs in Bristol and he drove every day to Margate. I mean, go Google Maps it. Bristol to Margate for training and then Margate back to Bristol and beans on toast at his digs. That was the commitment that Joe Morel had. And it wasn't even as though it was the highest quality training because they didn't have a training ground. And the training that he attended every day in Margate took place on an all-weather pitch. But it didn't bother him. Maybe it bothered him, but it didn't deter him. He stuck at it. Lincoln then borrowed him after Cheltenham. Luton then came for him. He was with them for just on a season before establishing his potential to the extent that Portsmouth, in the guise of Danny Cowley, came and bought him, and he was that good that he skippered Pompey on a number of occasions and did a good job. Great piece about a memorable character for all sorts of reasons. Joe Morel.